Let's have a look. Yes, I've got a notification saying I'm live, which is good. I'm going to post the link so people can find it easier. Here we go. So everyone should be able to see that now here, which seems good. Okay, so LinkedIn, welcome. Nice to see you guys. It is now 1 o'clock. So I am going to kick off as always, because I want to keep this to these short kind of half an hour stints at your lunchtime whilst you're, I would come on a minute or so, so everyone should be able to turn that off now here. That proves that it's working. Okay, so if you can hear me and all that okay, just type a little message in there so I can see. But seems like everything's working well, so I'm going to kick off here at 1 o'clock. Okay, so as I've said, I'm going to treat these lunchtime kind of lives as an opportunity to tackle distinct topics or distinct questions that people have when it comes to communication skills. So obviously I won't have time to go through everything. If you want me to go through, have more detailed or kind of something more personal, reach out to me on my kind of LinkedIn page, or go to my coaching page, which you'll see kind of the links when you click onto me, and we can have a kind of a chat on there. So that's what I'll kind of say if you want more help. But for now, today's question really is one that I know has challenged a lot of people in terms of, it kind of goes something like this. I think I'm generally fine with my communication, especially with presentations. But when it comes to questions, I kind of fall apart, or that really feels very uncomfortable. It's totally unpredictable. I don't know what to do. Thanks for the comment, Les. Good. I'm glad it's all working. Cheers for that. And what that tends to trigger as well is what I like to call, and people refer to as, the imposter syndrome. So the imposter syndrome kind of goes something like this. What am I doing here? Are people going to find out that I don't belong here? Or are they going to realize that I don't really know what I'm doing? Or when they ask me questions, are they going to figure out that I haven't really got a clue? I don't deserve to be here. It goes kind of things like that. And it's a phenomenon that a lot of people suffer from, especially if you are in an uncertain position in your career. Either you're an early starter, or you're not quite where you want to be and you believe you want to go further, but you're not sure if people see you as ready for the next step up. So it is a very common phenomenon that pretty much everybody suffers from. So again, don't be concerned if that is you. But the good thing about that is, because a lot of people have that same challenge, it means that you can overcome it, because of course other people have. And there is nowhere that is more kind of affected by imposter syndrome than having to deal with questions. Because it's one thing to prepare your presentation or go into a moment of communication knowing what it is you're going to say. It's quite another to deal with questions that people have, because essentially they are asking you things because they didn't feel that they got the answer from what you had said earlier, which means it is inherently unpredictable, and that can be concerning. Hi, Deirdre. It's the question that comes out of left field, or the question that seems loaded in a way that may seem designed to trip you up. Absolutely, Deirdre, you're exactly right. And that is particularly why I want to tackle it, because it is something that a lot of people ask me about and kind of want some help with. So I'm going to give you a few tips that will help you specifically with that scenario of the left field question, or the question designed to trip you up. Now, dealing with what the question does is, because it's inherently unpredictable, and because you may well get a question that you don't know the answer to, that can really affect your confidence. You get that feeling. So I've had it in court a few times actually as a barrister, where you've done all your prep, you've done the analysis, and then the judge asks you something and you're like, oh gosh, I didn't look that up, or I didn't predict that, or I'm not sure what I think. And if you guys have watched me before, you'll know my uncomfortable symptom is sweat. So I always tell people I get sweat that kind of starts around here on my head and then it just starts dripping down. So that's the sign. You see that happening to me, you know that I'm nervous or I'm feeling a little bit underprepared. So it is something that really happens, and it's something that can really definitely affect your confidence. So what I want to do is to give you just a very straightforward way to approach it. And what I always say about the things that I will suggest or the techniques that I will put forward is I try to keep them simple. But simple is not always the same as easy. So this is something you need to work on, you need to practice, you need to think about and be intentional about. But it's not actually hugely complicated in how to deal with it. Now, let me tell you a little story again from my kind of barrister days as to how I realized is the right way to go into dealing with questions and handle them with confidence. In the early days when I was a young barrister, I was working on a case with a more senior barrister, which actually involved kind of quite an important company. We were meeting the CEO and directors, so it's going to be quite a big deal. And the barrister that I was kind of working with, the senior barrister, messaged me shortly before we were about to go into a client conference with all of these guys saying, oh, I'm going to be late. Just mind the fort for like 10 minutes. I'm like, what? You must be joking. But, I'm a relatively confident guy. So I go in thinking, yeah, I'm going to do this. I've analyzed the case. I do know a lot about it, even if I'm kind of shadowing the senior barrister. So I'll be able to do this. I got this. And so I go into the meeting and I'm talking to the clients about, the case and what I think about strategy. And the clients ask me questions and I respond. And then they ask me more questions and I respond. And they just ask more and more. And they just kept peppering me with question after question. And it became really quite uncomfortable. And the sweat started, right? And it went on. And of course, the barrister who'd said he was only going to be like 10 minutes late, it was about half an hour to about 40 minutes. And it just felt like this intense, grueling event or episode in my life where I was just hit with question after question, difficult question. And a lot of times I felt I was floundering because I didn't really know the answer. But I didn't want to show that I didn't know the answer. So I tried to answer, but I didn't. And it just led to more questions. So pretty uncomfortable. And then the senior barrister rocks up, right? Comes in. Barristers are not known for being particularly polite people, right? So you can imagine what happens. So he rocks in, no apology for being late, just sits down and then just says, okay, guys, hi. So this is the way we're going to approach your case. Bang, 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 bang. Any questions? And of course, I'm looking there thinking, right, they're going to give it to this guy. Not only was he late, but I now know all the questions they have in their mind that I'm sure they're going to pepper him with in the same way that they peppered me. And what did they do? I still remember this. The CEO's question was only, okay, thanks. What time do you want us to meet at court? I was like, what? How is that? How is it that you had all of these really tough questions for me, and then this guy waltzes in and you've got pretty much no questions? And actually, after the conference had ended, I spoke to the barrister and kind of laid it out. And he explained something very, very simple to me that actually just kind of made a lot of sense at the time. And what he basically said is, when your clients, and actually when people in general ask you questions, they don't really want the answers. What they want to know is that you have the answers. And that's a very different thing. And so because when I was dealing with the conference, I think they could tell that I didn't quite know everything and I wasn't fully confident and I wasn't fully on top of everything. They just had more questions. They had more doubts, and that triggered more questions and more queries and more issues. Whereas when the senior barrister waltzed in, because he was totally controlled and composed and confident about himself and the situation, it just meant that they had confidence in him and so had less queries about certain things that they felt the need to ask me for. And I took from that and I learned from that that actually one of the most important things when you are dealing with any kind of Q&A scenario is to project the confidence, even if you don't feel it, but to nevertheless project it, because what people are looking for is not necessarily the answers to the questions they ask, but the confidence in you that you have got it under control. So the very first tip that I want to give you, and this is one, it's a bit of a leap of faith, but believe me, it really, really is important, is project confidence, project belief. Even if you have doubts internally, project that element of, I've got this, I know what I'm doing. Now, a big part of that is to make sure you are as prepared as possible beforehand. So definitely do your work, do your preparation. But that's the first thing, is project confidence. And a big part of that is to know what you are talking about. Oh, thank you, Deirdre. Yes, control, composure, confidence, 3 C's. Love that. Fully agree. Okay, so let's go on that. So, because if I left it there, you'd be saying, right, is that it? Project confidence, but I still don't feel it. So let me go on and give you a few more things that I think may well help. I touched on this actually in the last LinkedIn Live when I was asked a question. And this is one that is so underestimated, but so hugely effective. And it's so simple. Predict the question. Predict the question. 95% of the questions that you are going to be asked at any one time about any one subject that somebody may ask you about are pretty much entirely predictable. They really are. And that's generally because when you're the one answering questions, generally you're the one with the most either knowledge or experience, or who has done the most work at a particular time on a particular topic, which means people are asking questions usually based effectively, if you think about it, on their own ignorance. They don't know something, so they ask you because you appear to be an expert in the field, or they expect you to know. So make sure that you predict the question. Really make sure you do. And that means once you've done your thinking about what you're going to say the first place, sit down and think, okay, who's in my audience? Who am I likely to be speaking with? And what kinds of questions may they ask, right? You know, if you like mind maps, I think that's really great. You know, draw a bubble with a particular topic and then draw some offshoot bubbles and just ask, you know, in those offshoot bubbles, question this, what might it be? And then just think about your answer and do that for as much as you can, especially if you struggle with answering questions. If you take the time to predict the question that you might be asked, it will give you a massive advantage, because when that question comes, you know, you will be able to answer it. In fact, you'll be able to do more than that. You'll be able to act like, oh, that's, you know, a question I hadn't thought about. Let's see, how would we approach this, right? And then give your answer that appears off the cuff, but actually you had already thought about it. And that makes you look like somebody who really knows what they're doing. And that's going to feed into the confidence with which you deliver and deal with those question scenarios. So predict the question. Take the time to think about, okay, this is what I've said, but what are the holes? What are the gaps? What are the queries that I haven't had time to talk about that I may well be asked? What are, Deirdre, you asking, what are the left field questions that they may ask? You know, actually just take the time to think about it. Put your mind into the mind of the audience and say, okay, from their point of view, what are the things that may arise? And just look at some of the comments here. Stephanie, hey, Stephanie, can you fake it? Yes, you can and you should. There definitely is a lot to be said to fake it until you make it. However, don't rely on just faking it. And that's why I'm giving you more than just project confidence. Because if all you do is fake it, so you don't do the work to prepare beforehand, you don't do the work to predict the question, and some of the other things I'm going to cover now, then it will be obvious that all you are doing is faking it. So yes, fake it till you make it in terms of projecting confidence, but you're not projecting a confidence that's misplaced. It's misplaced if you haven't done the work. But if you have done the work, then what you're doing is you're projecting confidence that you should actually have because you've done the work, but you just don't quite feel it yet. So yes, I agree with that. MEK, oh, hey, MEK, nice to see you. I think you've mentioned this on one of your podcasts, predicting the question. Yes, absolutely. You will hear me say it all the time. And now when I work with clients, I help them with kind of structures on how to predict the question. There's lots to do around that. But essentially, the principle is fairly simple. Sit down for a moment, think from your people, your audience's point of view, and think what kinds of things may they still want to ask, even if I've covered it or because I haven't covered it. Grace, I like to put myself in the shoes of my audience so I can anticipate what their concerns will be. Grace, I entirely agree with you. That is a fundamental thing. Now, one thing to be careful of with there, because it's very easy to say, oh, I've put myself into the shoes of the audience, and you kind of ask softball questions. Oh, maybe they may want to know this, and then I'll do that, right? Don't do that. Really think about the different, almost create characters in your audience. Okay, there's this kind of person, there's this kind of person. And actually, I'm about to show you the 4 different character types when it comes to the people who ask questions and how to deal with them. So don't be soft, don't softball, make it easy for yourself by just giving yourself easy questions that you think, oh, I'm sure they'll ask this, and then prepare for that, because then they'll ask the question you weren't anticipating. LinkedIn user, I don't know your name, I'm afraid, it doesn't say it, but you say you need to be competent with the material, but not afraid to say you don't know the answer and will follow up. Yes, and in fact, let me move straight on to that. So one of the techniques that I think you will hear often is when you don't know the answer, don't blag it, right? I fully agree with that. It just isn't worth it. And remember, the reason why it isn't worth it is because primarily when people ask you questions, what they really want is confidence in you that you know the answer, as opposed to the specifics of the answers themselves, right? That is why, as LinkedIn user, I don't know your name, but that is why, as LinkedIn user says, that you don't need to be afraid to say, I don't know the answer. But let me give you a little tip about how to say, frame, I don't know the answer. Louis or Lewitt, I'm not sure, but hi, Louis, thanks for that. Let me give you a little tip about how to deal with, I don't know the answer, but I'll come back to you. Everyone does that. And people now, audiences are a little bit attuned to, oh, yeah, maybe he's just not that good, or she doesn't know what she's doing, whatever. So let me give you a little technique to help with that, that will give people the confidence that, oh, no, actually, this is a person that's in control. Don't just say, oh, I'm not sure about that, I'll come back to you. Say, I'm not sure about that. You know what? I'm going to come back to you by Wednesday next week by email. Is that okay with you? Right? So give a specific that says, oh, no, this is a serious person, because otherwise it's, I'll come back to you, and then people assume you'll never do, right? It's like saying, I'll call you, and you know that person ain't going to call you, right? Whereas if you say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a call on Tuesday at 3 o'clock, that is something that signals, oh, actually, this person is serious about it. So if you do have to do the, I'm not sure about that, let me let you know, give a specific date and time, and even a manner by which you'll do it, because that inspires confidence of somebody who's completely in control, wasn't afraid to say, I don't know the answer, but had a plan as to how to deal with it. And that inspires confidence. So I hope that helps. Oh, Lewitt. Hey, Lewitt, how you doing? I don't know why you come up as LinkedIn user, but great to have you here as well, Lewitt. Thank you. So I hope that little tip about how to deal with, I'll come back to you, helps. Be very specific about when and how you will come back to them. Okay, so let me give you another tip on dealing with questions, especially when you don't know the answer. And it's this: be a facilitator. Be a facilitator. Let me give you an example. So if you see when people, and this will probably have happened to you, whether on LinkedIn or a different social media platform, have you noticed that if you share the results or a post of somebody else, whether you retweet it or you share it on your LinkedIn feed, do you notice that the comments that you get back will often be directed to you as opposed to the original kind of creator of the post, right? I get it all the time where I'll share something that somebody else created. I might even retweet an entire post of someone rather than just sharing an article. And I'll get comments back saying, hey, great share, Kola. Thanks, that was really useful. You know, that's great advice, Kola. And I'm thinking, I wasn't the one who gave the advice. I just retweeted or reshared something that somebody else did. The reason is this: when you are the one that brings about the information that is needed, people will automatically credit you as being the creator of that information, even if you were not. How that plays into the question of the Q&A and question and answer is when you don't know the answer, a very effective way of dealing with it is to become a facilitator for the answer and put that back on the audience. Hey, you know, that's actually a really tough question. What do you guys think? And open it up to the audience, but be the facilitator of the answer. So you don't know the answer to the question, but you probably know some questions that are relevant to that question that people should be thinking about. So you say, you know what, that is a question I have not anticipated. What do you guys think? I mean, I imagine, and then you posit some factors that may go into what the answer is. Jesse, what do you think? You've done some work in this area, and bring other people into it and just become a facilitator of the discussion around the question that has been asked. And when the answers start to reveal themselves, because other people always have their opinions, when the answers start to reveal themselves, and you can say, oh, you know what, I think that might be it. Does that answer your question, Susan, or whatever it is, right? People will automatically credit you with the person that gave the answer, even though in actual fact you weren't. So there's another technique for dealing with questions that you don't know the answer to. Become a facilitator and help the answer come out and emerge from the discussion that you have with the whole of your audience. And audiences actually love that because it gets them involved. It's much more interactive. And the confidence you showed of not being flustered by the fact that you didn't know the answer just enhances your reputation even further. Let me have a look at another comment. Sonal, hey, Sonal, how are you doing? Devil's in the detail. I'll get back to you by Wednesday, 5 p.m. Yes, absolutely. Give a date, a time, and if you can, give a method. I'll come back to you by email, or listen, I'll WhatsApp you because I know we were WhatsApping the other day. Something like that. Les, great tips. Thank you very much, sir. I'm really glad they help. Okay, so listen, let me give you a final thing on what I call the 4 different types of questions, the 4 different types of questions. Really important to know because actually that will help you determine how you should answer questions where they are asked, because they're basically 4 different types. The first type is the genuine questioner, right? The genuine questioner, the person that actually asks a question to which they do want to know the answer, or at least they want to know that you can somehow get the answer or facilitate or understand, right? So the genuine questioner, and generally this is the majority of people, the response to that is simply answer to the best of your ability, right? Use the techniques we've talked about, project confidence, know your stuff, predict the question, facilitate if you don't genuinely know. But generally with the genuine questioner, it's fine to just answer the question. They're cool, right? They are honest about what they are doing. They have a question they don't know the answer to. They're asking you because you seem like the person who might know. Do your best to answer. So that's fairly straightforward. There's then a second type, which is the hostile questioner, the person who openly is actually being quite antagonistic and hostile. And again, this is actually quite rare, but it does happen. With this kind of person, shut them down. Shut them down with answering the question or without answering the question, entirely up to you, but shut them down. Maintain control of the stage, of the mic, of the situation, because nobody likes a hostile questioner. So you will have everybody on your side if you deal with it without anger, without rancor, but just, yeah, listen, that's not really that productive at the moment. So listen, I'm going to move on. You and I can speak afterwards if you still want to discuss it. Shut it down. and that's it. Nobody likes hostile questioners. Everybody can see what's going on. Everybody can see they don't like it. And actually, again, it will enhance your reputation if without anger, without getting into any kind of infraction, you simply shut it down and moved on, either with answering the question or without, but you just didn't give them the oxygen. So that's the hostile question. And again, there's kind of things you can do to really deal with that, which I can help if you really want to go into it, just get in contact with me. But for the moment, the principle is you want to shut them down without any guilt about it at all, because nobody else likes the hostile questioner. Okay, so third type of person is the show-off. Now, the show-off is the person that asks a question that's either super complicated or isn't even really a question, it's more a statement of what they think. And, they're kind of trying to impress everyone with how smart they are. Now, these are actually great people for you. And there's a very simple way to deal with them. Flatter them. And if you want, give them a time-limited period to expound further. You know what? That is a really intriguing question. Would you have any thoughts on it? What do you think, first of all, before I give you my view? And they'll grab the mic and give, just say, listen, just take like 20 seconds, just give me a bit more, right? They will love that because what they wanted was to show off anyway. And they'll be a little bit surprised that you're willing to give them that. Give it to them, keep it time limited, then take the mic back or whatever it is and give your own view and then move on, right? So you've got the genuine questioner, answer the question, the hostile questioner, shut them down. The show off, actually flatter them a little bit, give them what they wanted and then move on. And then you have the final type of questioner, which is the passive aggressive. The ones that ask a question that on the face of it is polite, but underneath it, it's a bit of a dig, or it's trying to show you up, or it's trying to trick you, or kind of, put you off stride, whatever it is, whatever their motives are for that. These are the most dangerous ones. And my technique and suggestion to you is this: do not rise to it. The passive aggressives never become openly aggressive unless you take it there. And that gives you the leeway to not just answer the question, but be hyper courteous about it, as though it is an entirely genuine question and that you haven't perceived any ill intent in the question. So, okay, thank you. You know what? Thank you for that. Actually, that's really tricky. That's really tricky. Just be hyper courteous about it and deflate the entire attack that they will try to level you. Just kill it with kindness and then move on, right? So answer, kill it with kindness, and then move on to somebody else who will likely be a genuine questioner. So those are the 4 types of questioners that you will face and the 4 different ways to deal with them. And it's tough because, as I said, this is simple but not necessarily easy, but it is a framework that will help you go into any question and answer situation, understanding that, first of all, it's you that they're interested in, not really the answer. So focus on how you can create that sense of competence and confidence in the way you deliver. Facilitate where you don't really know the answer. Give a specific date, time, and method that you'll come back to them on, and react to the 4 different types of questioners in the ways that I've outlined. And you will just be able to deal with your Q&As with just so much more confidence, which will help with your reputation, your career building, and all of that. I hope that all makes sense. I'm going to check. There's a couple more comments here. Hope. Oh, hey, Hope. Nice to see you. Great tips. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Great idea. You can also give quotes, right? Yes, Stephanie, definitely you can give quotes. The great thing about quotes, things like that, is it's borrowed wisdom that, again, they give you credit for as the person. So one of my favorite quotes I always use by Albert Einstein, some people say it wasn't him, but I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, it was him, that says, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. I love that quote because it helps me kind of impart what I always say to people, which is you've really got to know your stuff and then work out how to communicate that in a simple way. because otherwise other people won't get it and they won't assume that you really know what you're doing as well. So quotes are a great method of borrowed wisdom and can often help you deal with questions and answers in a way that, again, shows that you are an authority in your field, even if you don't know the specific answer. So I like that. Deirdre says, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. David, David, hey, how you doing? On point as always. I appreciate that, sir. Jersey was there as well. Great tips. Great. Listen, thank you, guys. Excellent. That is now 29. Hey, look, I'm doing well for keeping these to half an hour. MEK, yes, yes. I love that quote as well. That is definitely one of my favorites. I got loads of them, but that's definitely one of my favorites. So, guys, listen, I hope that helped with you and kind of your challenges on this particular topic of dealing with questions, especially when you don't know the answers, and being able to deal with it with confidence. As I said, reach out to me. You'll see my LinkedIn. Go to my about statement. You'll be able to connect with me and all of that. If you need more help on your communication skills, I am going to try and be here every week. If you have a particular question you would like me to tackle, this actually question was something raised by somebody in my last LinkedIn. I thought, yes, I'm going to do that, so I'll do it this week. Just message me, post to me, whatever it is, and I will do my best to tackle it. A couple more comments. Best way to deal with passive-aggressive ones and others not to rise to it. Yes, do not rise to it, because passive-aggressives are fundamentally cowards. Yes, I said it. They are fundamentally cowards, which means they don't like open conflict. That's why they are being passive-aggressive. In a question and answer situation, you do not need to have a conflict. So don't even give it oxygen. Be hyper courteous, almost uber courteous, where people will kind of like, wow, I could see that was an attack and she just totally deflated it. And that will enhance your reputation even further and will get you out of a conflict that was waiting to happen, but you just kind of steer away from. Let's have a look. Great session, Emeka. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kola. Okay, cool. So I think we're just in the thank yous now. So yes, guys, enjoy the rest of your lunch, whatever it is you're doing. I've got to check on my kids to see if they haven't burnt the house down. And I will see you again next week. As I said, reach out to me if you guys need any more help on a personal basis on some communication skills stuff. Otherwise, I will see you again. Ciao.